Hello, folks. Welcome back to What's Happening.
Dwayne.
What's cooking in Bert's kitchen? We're going to get back to doing another dessert today. Today we're going to do something simple and that everybody loves, good blueberry muffin. Now, this is going to require you to pay a little bit of attention to this because there's a couple of steps that if you don't follow them exactly, you could wind up with a catastrophe on your hands. So the first one is, and this is very important, preheat your oven to 380 degrees. Now my old recipe says 400 degrees. Why am I preheating it to 380 degrees? I will explain that to you when we're ready to put them in. Yes, 400 degrees is the temperature. I will explain this in just a few minutes. Now, we need to get to mixing up our ingredients.
What we'll need here is a good-sized bowl. Into this bowl, we're going to sift, and yes, I don't normally sift, but in this case it's very necessary, 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. You don't need to go out and buy some fancy sifter that, is going to fall apart or anything like that. This little sieve will work just fine. To that, I'm going to add 3/4 cup of sugar. Next, I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and this is a very important ingredient. The salt is just going to bring out all the flavors of everything else. You won't taste salt there, but it's very, very important. Get yourself a good flat spatula. Mix these ingredients together. Okay, so we set our dry ingredients aside. The next thing we want to deal with is our liquid. Another step that's very important. I could give you exact measurements on some of this stuff, but the math would just get complicated. We're going to make this simple. Here I have 1/3 cup of vegetable oil. To that, I'm going to add 1 egg, which brings us up somewhere between 1/2 cup and 2/3. Now to finish this off, we want to add just enough milk to bring it up to the 1 cup measure. Again, like I said, I could give you exact measurements, but the math would just get kind of complicated. So we take a fork and mix this all very well. Now this step can be skipped if you want to. I'm adding 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So there we have it, just a little bit more than a cup of liquid. What we're going to do now is add this liquid, pour it all directly into your dry ingredients. Again, another important step here, follow this. You want to mix it, not vigorously. Get it mixed in there for a slow count of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now stop. Into this batter, we now want to fold in 1 cup of blueberries, fresh if you got them, but hey, it's November. Who's got fresh blueberries? So we want to fold that in, give it maybe about 3 good turns to get them completely in there. And there we have it.
There we have our batter. It's going to be quite thick, kind of pasty, but that's exactly what we're looking for. Okay, today I'm using mini muffin pans. If you want to use a full-size muffin pan, it's perfectly fine. What we need to do with this is grease it. Use a little non-cooked spray, just make sure you get it everywhere in there. We want to use this ice cream scoop, this number 20 scoop that we've been using for cookie batters and other things. Pretty much one of my favorite go-to tools in the kitchen. Grab yourself a good fair bit of, a full scoop of batter and place it down in there. It's pretty much going to fill up the mini muffin pan. Okay, so here we have our pans full of muffin mix. Just to give them a little something extra, we're going to use some cinnamon sugar. Basically what cinnamon sugar is very basic and simple. 4 parts sugar to 1 part cinnamon. So if you were, let's say you're using a teaspoon, you use 4 teaspoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, mix that well. And what you want to do is just give a little dusting on the top. Make sure your hands are nice and dry, because otherwise this will all clump up in your fingers. Now the amount of batter that I made, if you were using a full-size muffin pan, would give you about a dozen muffins. Here I'm using these mini muffin pans, and this gives me about 2.5. Now this muffin mix will work for basically just about any type of muffin that you wanted to make. So here we are. Now we're going to discuss that 380 degrees. Come over to your oven and turn this up to 400 degrees. And notice it's preheating. That means the element's actually going to be on inside my oven, because these muffins, in order to get that top, that rise, it needs a blast of heat. So that the elements in an oven cycle. When it gets a little too cool, they come on, they bring it back up to temperature, and then they shut down again. If I put it in when the elements are turned off, I'm not going to get that blast of heat. So that's why we want to raise it up to 400 degrees just before we put these in. But we want to make sure that the oven's pretty close to 400 degrees. That's why we put it on 380 to start with. Any lower than 375, 380, it'll be too cold when we put it in there, even though it gets that blast of heat and they're not going to cook in the proper amount of time. So let's get our muffins into the oven. And we're going to set our timer to 12 minutes. At the 12-minute point, we're going to come in, we're going to turn those muffin pans around so that they get an even bake, and then we're going to set it for another 13 minutes. So we've got 25 minutes to wait. I'm going to clean some dishes. You guys go learn to dance the Macarena, and we'll be back. Okay, folks, so at 12 minutes, we turn them around, 180 degrees. Put them in for another 13 minutes, total of 25 minutes cooking time. Let's get our mini muffins out of the oven. And immediately, you want to turn them out onto a cutting board. They should all pop right out. You have a few that don't. Take a thin knife, just kind of loosen them around the edges. And they'll all pop right out. Take them,
Set them up on a nice little plate. Take them and set them all up on a nice little plate. And there you have beautiful little dessert or a breakfast item that everybody can just grab one bite wonders. Or if you're doing the full-size muffins, you know, everybody can grab a muffin, have that with their coffee.
And oh my, are they just fantastic. Quick little recipe, easy baking, just those steps that I stressed to you that are very important. Please make sure you follow those. Thank you for spending some time with us today. Come back and see us next time and find out what's cooking in Bert's kitchen.